I'm fucking back! Tell your mom, tell your friends, tell your comatose aunt for all I care. In this series, I'll be going over every mode in the Call of Duty Black Ops series and ranking them from worst to best, starting with the campaigns. I won't be covering details like the weapons and such. I'm going to be instead saving that discussion for the multiplayer video, so I avoid sounding like a broken record. So here we go. Let's go. Let's get it. Here we go. The worst campaign in Black Ops history is BO3. Although following up the original Black Ops duology would be a difficult feat, Treyarch went the extra mile and made sure it was as disappointing as fucking possible. There is essentially no reference to anything that occurred prior in the series, which is just completely nonsensical with how interesting and deep the Black Ops storyline is. Playing through this game is just a slog. Half the time, the missions seem to add shit in just to waste your time. Like doing this windstorm where you just have to stop moving every few seconds. How the hell did they think putting this in the game would be a good idea? And seemingly every mission has you fight off this bullshit ASP tank in a constant cycle of pouring bullets into the thing, sending off a rocket while its defenses are down, and then repeating like 5 fucking times while having to scavenge for ammo at least once per time. This soaks up like 2 or 3 minutes every time they pop up, and in the last mission one of the developers' wives must have fucking left them or something because they put like fucking 5 of them in this one stretch. Another thing is the difficulty balance. I am very ashamed to admit that I had to switch this game to recruit multiple times, and I still died a fair amount. I'm no sap either. I beat Black Ops 1 on Veteran. There's no gameplay variety, barely any variety in locations, and you don't feel any motivation to keep playing until the latter half of the game. One thing I will admit is that movement in this game can be really fun once you get the jetpack upgrade, but that's only because the enemies aren't also using it like in multiplayer. Jetpacks are not fun in multiplayer. Not at all. The flashback to the World War II Battle of the Bulge is the turning point in the game, where questions actually worth wanting to be answered are presented and gameplay takes a slight shift in a better direction. I also really like the small zombies segment in this mission. It's a nice flashback to the smaller, claustrophobic maps present in World at War. The rest of the game goes back to a classic Treyarch experience, with potent themes of human experimentation and secret projects, despite still suffering from lackluster, but slightly more competent gameplay. The story of the game is actually pretty alright, but it's convoluted and hard to follow during gameplay, plus the characters are kinda terrible. BO3 certainly doesn't have the worst campaign ever, but the boring gameplay and the slowness of the middle of the game makes it a bit hard to give a shit. Next up is Call of Duty World at War, and here the quality jumps up insanely fast. This game is unlike any Call of Duty released before or after it. It's disgusting, dark, and terrifying. The graphics try and contribute to that by almost making the game look like it's in black and white, and while that approach gives the game a very unique aesthetic, it makes the game less appealing to look at. This overall doesn't become too much of a problem in the campaign, but when I cover the multiplayer it will be brought up. The gameplay and story is almost split down the middle in terms of quality. On the American side, there's really nothing to note story-wise, or really gameplay-wise. Bonsai charges are annoying, you use the American weapons you've already seen a million times in other games, and the tone is a lot less potent. I think Semper Fi, Hard Landing, and Burn 'em Out are all quality missions, however, and you can't talk about the American side of the World at War campaign without mentioning the ray gun Easter egg, of course. You get ambushed a few times, some guys you don't get a chance to care about get killed, you go through some trenches and attack a castle. It follows the story of World War II closely, which makes sense, but as every other game on this list shows, Treyarch's writing is best when they can craft their own stories. But on the other side is one of the greatest World War II games out there. Fucking Vendetta. The only sniper mission in Call of Duty history that could rival All Gillied Up. This mission is fantastic. Watching all your comrades get flushed out by Germans only for Reznov to poke his head up is iconic. I mean, the entire mission is iconic. Everything Reznov says in this opening section is just incredibly badass. Taking out the enemy sniper as you're mostly powerless in a burned out building is very memorable, and taking out Omzel is just fantastic. I can't imagine anyone playing this mission for the first time and being excited to go back to the American side of the campaign. After that you move through Germany, from wheat fields all the way to the Reichstag. This subway section here in Eviction is one of my personal favorite areas in the game. The Russian arsenal is unique and fun to use. Mowing down droves of Nazis with the PPSH will never not be satisfying. It's also fucking hilarious to go through the game constantly listening to Reznov glaze you in front of everyone, like he shows you off like you won the first place in the science fair. I believe this is also the first COD game with more than one ending. You can choose to save either Roebuck or Polonsky from the grenade in the last Japanese mission, and depending on whether or not you spare the surrendering German soldiers throughout the game, Chernov will write something different about you in his journal. Both are very small, unimportant changes, but are still interesting nonetheless. In terms of downsides on the whole, the game's difficulty balancing isn't the best, the lack of gameplay variety makes replaying it less appealing, and the drab graphics aren't fun to look at, even if it contributes to the game's tone. Overall, World at War's campaign is half a quality game, and half one that's just decent. Still, don't be deceived by it being at the bottom of the list, it's got some fierce competition. Up next is BO6. BO6, being the second campaign in the series to be developed primarily by Raven Software, takes a lot of cues from its predecessor Cold War, but to much more lukewarm results. It makes a valiant effort to accelerate Cold War's highs and negate its lows. For example, Cold War was criticized for being too short, so the campaign is one of, if not the longest in COD history. Cold War's Hitman-style KGB infiltration mission was praised, so this idea is replicated and expanded in both the Gala and the Vorkuta mission. The problem is that a lot of the more general aspects of a COD campaign are simply not as well executed here. By far the weakest element of Black Ops 6 is the story. I can't say it's bad, but the twist that every Black Ops game has is just not nearly as well done or interesting as it could be. The characters are good, they're not too contrived or anything like most COD characters are, but the whole truth lies marketing slogan is in reality incredibly surface level stuff, and it's just the same let's track down the crime syndicate before they unleash a bioweapon that we saw in Black Ops 1. The protagonist Case has no personality whatsoever, and while this worked for Cold War since Bell was a self-insert type character, I don't really see any reason why he needs to be this way. Sure, I mean Marshall seems to be the implied actual protagonist, but it's just a confusing choice that doesn't really add anything to the game. The safe house is a nice feature. Having secrets hidden inside that you can find and collecting cash throughout missions so you can upgrade your character are both novel additions that you really can't complain about. Being able to get weapon blueprints that can be used for multiplayer with cash is also a surprisingly consumer-friendly move for the COD series. One very commendable element of the game is the ability to choose your playstyle at whim. During many of the missions, you are able to either stealth around or run and gun, and I think the stealth gameplay here is some of the best the series has to offer. It makes the missions seem a lot more open-ended and adds some nice variety to each playthrough. As for the missions themselves, they're a mixed bag. The first mission in Kuwait is pretty forgettable, surprisingly, but the third where you infiltrate the capital station Gala to free Adler is a highlight, and probably the most interesting example of the rogue Black Ops team going against the government. However, putting the Pantheon as the enemy in the underground section of the map seems like a huge cop-out to me. It could have been made interesting with Case and the team not wanting to take out members of their own military due to ethics and legal concerns, but instead it's just an excuse to vilify all the enemies in the level. Then comes the mission Hunting Season, an open world level where you're tasked with destroying 3 Scud launchers so you can go raid Saddam Hussein's palace. The mission's actual main objectives are fine, and they're another good example of the stealth gameplay implemented in the campaign, but the open world is just really poorly done. The most common secondary POI you'll find in the game are the supply drops, and each and every one of them contain the same 5 things. You're telling me you pulled out throwing knives, RCXDs, tranq mines, and you couldn't think of literally anything else? This is shameful. The other objectives are really not very interesting, and not worth going out of your way to reach them. They could have been implemented so much better, but it just feels like filler, especially when this all takes place in this giant, boring desert environment. The next mission of note is Emergence, the zombie one, and this mission is incredibly polarizing to me. On one hand, it has one of the most visually interesting and pleasing environments of the series. Like seriously, this is one of the only parts of the game that actually looks like it takes place when it does. The aesthetic is perfect to the point where if you showed anyone that hasn't played BO6 this screenshot, nobody would guess it's from a Call of Duty game of all things. Unfortunately, on the other hand, the gameplay and enemies are really just mediocre. I know I praised the BO3 campaign for its zombie segment a second ago, but I feel like considering the scale of this mission, they could have thought of something a little more interesting than zombies. The mannequins in this area are cool though. The level is mostly just a fetch quest where you get to use a grappling hook to navigate the area. Each subsection of the facility has a boss, and honestly, fighting the bosses is just not fun. Literally all of them are just massive tank enemies ripped from zombies that you kill by emptying all your bullets into them thoughtlessly. The mission is definitely memorable, but the enemies really aren't just fun to fight against. After that, the casino mission is pretty great, the airport mission is pretty shit, devolving into a massive slog of armored enemies and grenades, besides the return of my goat Sims from Cold War. Hell yeah. Vorkuta is a great mission, possibly the best in the game. While the actual shooting segments aren't very varied or interesting, the Hitman-style stealth segment at the beginning is a great time. It's a little more linear than I would have liked, but it's still very well done. My favorite part is these keen eye segments when talking to soldiers, when you examine their environment and have to remember things like missile model numbers and children's names. It's not groundbreaking or anything, but for whatever reason I'm a fan of it. The final mission, Separation Anxiety, falls in the same camp as Emergence, with great aesthetics but lackluster gameplay. I know the mission is supposed to be a flashback that slowed the pace down, but it's really just another fetch quest without any of the shooting in between. I do like Jane's backstory and the way that plays into her environment. This dark section right here kind of pissed me off because you literally can't see anything in your peripherals, but this moment right here got me pretty good. The sections where you defend the safe house are kind of repetitive and boring, but the ending scene is pretty awesome. The only problem being that the big climax of the cradle being under the Capitol is just kind of brushed off and copped out, disappointingly just being prevented off screen. Overall, the campaign in this game is very good, but the story is lacking substance and drive, and the gameplay feels tedious in places. I remember the campaign having a lot less identity than it did, but after replaying, it seems that couldn't be further from the truth. This issue only seems to be present in the other segments of the game, which I'll talk about soon. I still think Tac Sprint is terrible, though. Next on the list is Cold War. This is once again a sizable leap up in quality, as I honestly struggled to find specific flaws with the game. The story is essentially a mix of Black Ops 1 and 2, where the main objective is tracking down a Soviet agent named Perseus before he can strike again. The story is persistently engaging, expansive, and just awesome, really. The characters are a good mix of new and old, with the old ones feeling accurate to their previous appearances, and the new ones, particularly Adler, quickly becoming iconic and welcome additions to the Black Ops canon. The best part about Cold War to me is just how innovative it feels in its mission variety. You're taken to so many unique environments throughout the game. The Berlin Wall, Vietnam, the KGB headquarters, and my personal favorite, a live fire training facility in a hidden Russian military base that's intricately modeled after a fucking 80s Midwestern town.
It's a Spetsnaz training course. Made to look like fucking any town USA.
There's absolutely no way in hell that someone could play Cold War and not be at least a little impressed by the creativity here. The gameplay flows beautifully throughout all these locations. A competently made Hitman-style stealth system is introduced in Brick in the Wall, as you sneak around East Berlin while guards harass pretty much anything with a pulse. Entering this guy's tiny apartment while his entire family is home is probably more tense than even the field scene in All Gillied Up from Call of Duty 4. This mission has to be one of the best in Black Ops history. And then follow that up with a Soviet base infiltration turned Stranger Things flashback. I mean, seriously, interrupting a live fire drill with real combat is such a cool idea. After that, it's back to WMD from Black Ops 1, and a very solid mission that ends with you stealing an entire mainframe for the facility with a helicopter. Then the famous Desperate Measures, where the KGB has been informed of an American double agent in the building, who just so happens to be you. Exploring a semi-open world, non-linear Hitman-style level for what I think is the first time in COD history is a feeling like no other. Picking off guards and hiding them in lockers as you piece together a way to complete your objective is by no means a recent concept, but it's one that is surprisingly welcome as a bookend between the guns-blazing firefights of most levels and an evolution of the infamous stealth mission. This 4-mission run is undefeatable, and probably the most varied in Call of Duty history. The penultimate mission, Break On Through, is another feat. Adler reads your past to you as you play through it, and if you disobey his directions, you discover a ton of other secrets, like falling into another Zombies reference, for instance. By the end, the iconic twist is revealed, and you're given a choice whether to betray your friends and lie about the location of Perseus, or tell the truth. Personally, I see no reason why you would lie here, especially considering you would be betraying the most iconic friendly characters in the franchise, but it's not that big of a deal. And throughout all these missions, there's the unmistakable feel of the 80s. You feel like you're actually there. The visual design department fucking killed this game. Everywhere you go is intriguing, vibrant, and intricate. Honestly, a lot of it reminded me of the 2019 HBO Chernobyl series, but that could just be a testament to how well both pieces' period accuracy is done. The gunplay is incredibly satisfying and every mission is tons of fun to play. The worst part of the campaign is simply that it's too short. The safe house is really nothing too expansive in this game, besides the appearance of several retro Atari games. The additional Operation Chaos and Operation Circus missions are fine pieces of side content, but the coolest part about them is that you actually have to run some spy shit in order to solve them. You have to use pieces of evidence you find around missions that require each other to solve, and it's another testament to the innovation and creativity of this game. For other downsides, I suppose Perseus isn't the greatest villain, and the final mission isn't very notable or memorable, but otherwise, Cold War is a surprisingly great game in the midst of a disappointing era. I was honestly tempted to put it above Black Ops 2. Speaking of, the second best campaign in Black Ops history is Black Ops 2. BO2's campaign, much like its Zombies mode, isn't as consistent as other games, but its highs go too high to be ignored. The aesthetic, as you might come to expect, is amazing. The past missions all look very similar with a ton of browns and grays, but the future missions look excellent. The game depicts a sharp, clean, minimalist future that becomes oddly dreamlike when it's been ravaged by war. The bright neon billboards of 2025 Los Angeles juxtaposed with rubble and ruin is remarkable for reasons I can't quite put into words. And the black and white on orange design of the menus in this game are iconic and striking. The presentation of everything from 2025 is simply great. The graphics are definitely the best out of every COD on the 360, and maybe even some of the best graphics on the system altogether. Looking at Modern Warfare 2 versus BO2 is night and day. The worst part about Black Ops 2 are the missions set in the past. In terms of story, I think they're great. Playing as Mason again and watching the game you play through butterfly effect its way to the future is an effective way to present the narrative. I just don't think they're that fun to play. Their visuals are some of the most drab and boring the series has had, and they feel like a waste of time in sections. Like, you gotta lug woods around in the first mission, you gotta traverse on horseback in the second, and you gotta, I don't know, fucking watch Menendez look at his sister in the third. I won't pretend these missions are bad, but they're especially bland outside of their story elements and key events. There are a few exceptions. Playing as an absolutely fucking pissed Menendez is cool, and so is hitting a devious headshot on this guy with the bag on his head. Suffer With Me is easily the best past mission, and it's exempt from most of the criticisms I pointed out a second ago. It's a fucking monumental kick in the balls that demands both your attention and emotion, and solidifies Menendez as the best villain in Call of Duty history. The future missions, on the other hand, are consistently fantastic, especially in the latter half of the game. The environments, weapons, and technology you get to use are all enjoyable and perfectly futuristic. The mission Karma that takes place on the floating city of Colossus is probably the best in the game. It mixes a stunning outdoor environment with elements like the rave scene where you fight off Menendez troops as techno music blasts in the background. Odysseus, another banger mission, provides a deep view into how powerful Menendez actually is, one that will be blown to wild proportions on the streets of Los Angeles in the next mission, Cortes Dia. For the first time in the Black Ops series, an entire city on the CIA's home turf has been destroyed. You're tasked with escorting the president to a bunker, and have to do so as you're constantly getting tailed and strapped for resources. It's a big change of pace and avoids a lot of the keep going until you reach the end style that a lot of COD missions have, as you go out of your way to protect your HVT. You even get to hop on a jet and chase after the enemy, which provides a fantastic aerial view of LA. In between these missions, there are side Strike Force levels that use an RTS-like command system. They're nothing crazy, I believe they all take place on multiplayer levels, but they provide a different multiplayer-esque shakeup that even though they're optional, you'd be missing something by not playing them. It's such a cool touch that the future missions not only have different HUDs, but even different hit markers, and it makes me wonder why they didn't use the future HUD in the multiplayer. You'll mostly be fighting alongside Harper throughout the campaign, but other side characters like Sergeant Briggs and Karma stand out as interesting and likable. None of the friendly characters seem to have very much depth besides Section of course, but that doesn't take away from their distinct personalities. Created Class is a feature I'm surprised wasn't implemented before this, and it fits great here along with the replayability added by the game's branching storyline. The multiple endings in the game aren't going to rip up the foundations of the whole series with a wave of innovation, but they give the player a much deeper experience and a reason to play the game again. For smaller cons, the game moves at a breakneck pace. It needs to have a good stealth mission or two to break it up a bit. I guess technically the mission in Pakistan qualifies, but its stealth sections are really closer to a walking sim than anything. Also, some of the choices in this game are really strange. Like at one point you play as Menendez that can either wound Sergeant Briggs or kill him. Who the fuck is going to choose to kill him? Black Ops 2 is a slightly less consistent game, but one that does many things the best in the franchise, and pretty much does nothing that's the worst. And finally, we arrive at Black Ops 1. I know I'm like a Treyarch glazer and shit, but seriously, Modern Warfare 2 cannot compare to this game. The Black Ops campaign is insanely well executed in pretty much every department. The gameplay, the story, the environments, it's all perfect. And the tone of the game is set immediately in the menus. Before even starting the campaign, you get the best menu in COD history, where you're strapped to a chair getting interrogated. Old TVs crowd your view, the sound of your heart rate monitor drips continuously, a hazy fog floats through the room, the first cutscene is iconic. The first voice protagonist in COD history makes his presence known by talking a load of shit. The interrogator spouts out one of the most iconic memes to come out of the franchise, and Mason gets a proper introduction. In the very first mission, you insist in the Bay of Pigs invasion and fucking kill Fidel Castro. Even if he ends up being a double, that is insane. After that, you're taken to Vorkuta, and anybody who's anybody knows that this mission is the fucking bee's knees. Reznov is fucking back, and he's more vengeful than ever. He has an 8-step plan to achieve freedom. The gameplay in this mission is top-notch, so many awesome objectives to inch yourself closer to freedom, and the rags to riches gameplay where you start with your knife and work up to a minigun is so unique and captivating. You gotta love riding a motorcycle while blasting people with a lever-action double-barrel shotgun that doesn't need to be reloaded. And finally earning your escape with Reznov being left behind is bittersweet.
Come on! Step 8, Reznov! Freedom! For you, Mason! Not for me! Reznov!
After that you meet JFK though, so it's not all bad. I've always thought of the next mission, Executive Order, as the most defining example of a COD mission ever. Like if I were to show someone who's never played COD before what it's all about, I would give them the controller and have them play this. It's got a little of everything. A little stealth, a little espionage, a little intrigue, and a potent space-age aesthetic with a fantastic setting.
Oh, shit! It's a hell of a way to test the prototype.
Next up is Vietnam, Fortunate Son and all. Nothing really story-wise, but some fun gameplay. The next mission in Hue City looks like someone swapped out their napalm with Big Red, because this mission is big and red. You get to use this Dragon's Breath Spas 12, and you meet up with Legoat once again, who made it out of Vorkuta somehow. Next up is Numbers, where you play as Hudson navigating through a neon-riddled Hong Kong, in a mission with one of the best visuals in the game. Then there's the return of World War II and a flashback told by Reznov. You get to use World War II weapons in a new setting, the Arctic Circle. You fight alongside Dmitry Petrenko, the protagonist of World at War, in a fantastic swan song to Treyarch's previous project. It ends with your commander betraying you, and your small group of living allies having to fight literally everyone to escape the ship.
This is not our war! Then who do we fight?
The next two missions, Victor Charlie and Crash Site, are both good missions, but not quite as notable as the others. I do have to mention Crash Site because of this awesome segment when you pilot a boat and destroy enemy camps, all while Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones plays in the background. It's fucking class. Remember, every mission in this game is fucking great, but a few are really fucking great. WMD is a really fucking great mission. The first section allows you to pilot an SR-71 Blackbird as you track the movements of Hudson's team below. You get to switch between them as you clear out buildings, eventually making your way to the complex at Mount Yamato. From there it's a bit of a stealth mission, monitoring enemy routines and taking them out with your crossbow. When you end up going loud, the mission is just as good, with a ton of dope set pieces to mess around in. The last few missions are also fantastic, but due to spoilers I won't cover them in depth. The story of this game is top notch. It's not just a good Call of Duty story, it's not just a good video game story. The game story is fucking good, no matter what piece of media it's contained within. Since Treyarch was focusing on a period of history that was shrouded in this sort of mystique, they went buck wild and crafted just a fantastic storyline. Everything, the numbers, the twist, the ending, it's all just amazing. I think this is the first COD I ever played where I actually sat through every cutscene, back when the series was new to me. And the aesthetics of this game are just amazing. Every location is done vibrantly with great accuracy to the time period. The 60s is just such a cool period in history, a perfect middle ground between the high-tech equipment of the late 20th century and the bare-bones chemical reactions of the early 1900s. The visual design department once again deserves a raise, even though I'm a decade and a half too late. Black Ops 1 is a perfect Call of Duty campaign. In terms of negatives, I guess not every mission is a top 10 mission in COD history. That's really all I got. Join me next time when I cover every Black Ops multiplayer, and thank you so much for watching to the end. This video was really a pain in the ass to make, so if you would share it with your friends or leave a comment or something, it would make me grin very wide. Peace out.